Should the Statue of Liberty come as a pair with another statue, the Statue of Responsibility? Viktor Frankl was the first one that I heard talk about this. And at the time, I thought it was an interesting statement, but now that I've gotten older, I read that book maybe 10, 12 years ago. If you haven't read it, great book. But he talks about that. I don't know if he talks about that in the book, but he's I think the first person that I heard that from talk about these two things and the connection between them. And as I've seen the country that I live in, the United States, go through what we're experiencing right now is a lot of problems, I see that as more and more important every single day. What does this mean, right? The Statue of Liberty is basically that freedom, right? We have a lot of freedom in this country. We have a Bill of Rights. We have the Constitution. We have all these freedoms that are endowed to us. And when you have a lot of freedom, right? What's the Spider-Man quote? With great power comes great responsibility. Without responsibility, and you just have freedom unchecked, you're basically can do whatever it is that you want from moment to moment. And you see this, I've talked about this in previous videos with the amount of the population that is either overweight or obese. That's not a problem of poverty. That's not a problem of lack. That is a problem of too much freedom. You have the freedom of choice to eat whatever you want, whenever you want, and however much you want. Same thing with technology and cell phones. If you're watching this right now, you probably have access to internet. You probably have a device like a phone or a computer that you're watching it on. And we can just endlessly scroll and watch videos and read or do whatever it is that we want and entertain ourselves. So we have that freedom. But that responsibility in a free society has to come from within. I'm sure if you're living in the United States or if you're living in another quasi-free nation, you don't want the government telling you exactly what you should be doing. But we're almost getting to the point now where that might be a good idea. Now, I don't think it's a good idea because I don't trust the government to tell me what to do, right? We're kind of having that debate right now with some other things going on. Let's not even get into that. But I think that it has to come from within. Now, how does that even come about? Now, we have the Statue of Liberty. Everybody knows about that, or a lot of people know about the Statue of Liberty on the East Coast. Having something that represents responsibility, accountability on the other end as symbols. Symbols are very, very powerful because they allow us to attach meaning to it, even subconsciously. And a lot of what we do is subconscious. So if we have this freedom, and that's how we express it in our everyday life, but we don't have any sort of responsibility that's around. And there's so many different examples that we can talk about where, there is no accountability, there is no responsibility, even to say or to question something like, hey, maybe you shouldn't be doing this, is like, what are you talking about? I'm allowed to do whatever I want. This makes me happy, or this is what I want to do. Okay, but it might not be the best thing for you. Well, it's what I want to do right now. Well, long term, how is that going to affect you? Well, we're running that experiment right now in this country. As we've been able to do whatever it is that we've wanted, we've been getting away with it. A great example is Tim Dillon, a comedian, talked about, it's like we've just been having a party with our parents that are gone, right? Parents are gone, house is a wreck, we're just having fun, enjoying life. That's the United States. And now parents are coming home, right? Debt is collecting up. People aren't able to communicate as well, right? Things aren't as fun as they were because we've just torn the house to shreds. And without that responsibility, too much freedom unchecked is not a good thing. I mean, I can talk about this from my own life, but I want to ask you, when you just do whatever you want, however you want to in the moment, how does that work out for you? When you're disciplined, when you're accountable, when you check things off your list that you have to do, maybe you don't want to do them, but you have to do them, how does that end up working for your life in general? I'd guess and go out on a limb and say when you do those things that maybe they don't feel great in the moment, but they are necessities or things that you just have to get done, or things that you know are going to be good for you in the long term, the quality of your life increases. And so when you take that on a macro scale and you apply that to a nation, if we don't have that responsibility, and us as individuals aren't being told by anyone around us what we need to do, what's going to happen? We're going to do what we want to do. That's human nature. And no one should be blamed for that. But at the same time, I think we're smart enough to understand. And there is, a project going around. They want to actually build a statue of responsibility on the West Coast. I think an artist has come up with the drawings even. I'll send a link if you're interested in learning more about that. I just found out about it. But for your own life, that responsibility has to be there. That accountability has to be there. We have the freedom. If you're just using the freedom, you're just doing what you want, doesn't always work out the best thing in the best way for you. So just something to think about, especially if you're in one of these countries that has a lot of freedom. What are you doing with it? Are you just entertaining yourself? Are you just pleasing yourself? Or are you making your life better? Because when your life gets better, and I'm talking about not just in the pleasure moment to moment sense, I mean actually gets better. You get healthier, you get stronger, you get smarter, you get more productive. That helps me out as well. It helps your neighbor out as well. It helps everyone in the country, anyone who's around you. And so that's what I think we need, because it doesn't look too great for us right now. We're experiencing a lot of problems, and that responsibility is something that we need reminded of, and a statue would be a great idea, because it would be a symbol that we could take with us and help us keep it in the back of our mind, like I said, even if it's just subconsciously. So what are your thoughts on that? Again, if you haven't read A Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, great book, tough book to read about surviving the Holocaust, but he came up with that because he understands, right? He's been on the receiving end of not enough freedom, but when he was granted freedom and understands, it's like, hey, there's a lot of responsibility that goes along with this, because it can be taken away at any moment, but at the same time, you can use it to your own detriment. So that's food for thought for you today. Statue of Liberty, Statue of Responsibility. I think let's get that one up on the West Coast. Thank you.